Dear students, let's understand orbital overlap and hybridization concepts which are related to chemical bonding and molecular structure chapter from class 11 chemistry. A very important concept. Merging of the atomic orbitals, as we all know, it helps in making a molecule, and we call this overlapping of atomic orbitals because when we define the term atomic orbital, we say it is the space around the nucleus where you have a maximum probability of finding out an electron. So when a molecule is formed, suppose hydrogen is getting bonded with another hydrogen, right? So H2 molecule is formed. Now when two H atoms are coming closer and their atomic orbitals overlap, the space where the probability of finding an electron becomes common for both. They come so close that the space overlaps. So that results in pairing of electrons. The electron density is present between the two atoms then. And the extent of overlap that decides the strength of the bond. It has to be the overlap, extent of overlap we can understand like this. If the overlap is more, there will be more common space where there is probability of finding out those electrons. Only then they can get paired. And in general, greater the overlap, stronger is the bond. And according to this orbital overlap concept, the formation of a covalent bond between any two atoms that results by pairing of electrons which are present in their valence shell. But the only thing that we have to keep in mind is that they should have opposite spins. Only then the pairing is possible. Otherwise, they will be repelling each other. So this is the proper way of showing an electron pair while the formation of a molecule. Now, the criteria of overlap, you will notice in this particular figure attached here, negative and positive signs everywhere. So these negative and positive, first of all, it should be very clear to us that these are not charges. These are not charges. So what are they? They are basically giving you the idea of directions of these orbitals. That how are they placed on the axis or perpendicular to axis. So which lobe, if it is p orbital, dumbbell would be there. So which lobe of the dumbbell is in this direction and which one is in the opposite direction. So these are having the directional properties. These signs, they are not the charges. First thing. Now let us understand that how this orientation is important, how these orbitals are coming close and resulting into the formation of molecule by proper overlap. When I say proper overlap, extent of overlap does matter obviously, but the orientation, that how we are showing the particular orbital, that also matters. Now, these are three categories. Positive overlap, which is also called in-phase overlap. In that, you will show the positive side of the dumbbell of one particular atom is overlapping with the positive side of the other. As I told you, they are not charges. So we are showing that the common area where the probability of finding out an electron is there. So if I am showing two pz orbitals, this is pz. As you can see, this is the z-axis, and by convention, z-axis is taken as the molecular axis. That they say around this, the whole molecule is arranged. It is passing just through the middle of the molecule. So two pz orbitals from different atoms are overlapping, and if it is a positive or in phase overlap like this, or suppose this p orbital is overlapping with s orbital, s is spherical, so it can overlap with the positive lobe of p orbital, and you will notice that always s orbitals are shown with a positive sign, just to show that the sphere, if you consider the spherical shape of an orbital, it is equally distributed around the nucleus of an atom. So by convention, they have given it the positive sign. because the space, I mean the placement of a sphere in the space cannot have any direction. It is spherical in shape, right? So by convention, positive. So whenever you show a positive lobe of p orbital, always show the overlap, if it is overlapping with s orbital, with the positive of the p orbital. Then these are two px orbitals of different atoms. Now you can see that they are perpendicular to this z-axis, which is the molecular axis. So here I will show positive overlapping with the positive side and negative with the negative side. This type of overlap is called sideways overlap, if you remember, and that is possible in case of pi bonds, right? The extent of overlap would be more in case of when the lobes or when the orbitals are on the molecular axis. If they are perpendicular to it, it has to be a sideways overlap, which gives rise to pi bond. So pi bond is always weaker than sigma bond because the extent of overlap is lesser. Same way you can show py and py. This one. They are again perpendicular to z as well as x. So that's why they have been shown here to give you an idea that they are perpendicular to the other two lobes which are on z and x-axis. So here also positive is to be shown with positive and negative is to be shown overlapping with the negative. This is called positive or in phase overlap. If I show negative of a lobe overlapping with the positive of the other, that means they are out of phase. This particular type of overlapping is impossible. So that's why we say that this is negative overlap. So this kind of overlap can never give rise to the bond formation. And there is the last one, third one, which is called zero overlap. Zero overlap, out of phase again, because different orientation directions of approach. What happens if I take this p orbital and instead of showing the sphere overlapping with the positive lobe, I show it here in the middle. It is overlapping with this portion. Now in this portion, you do not have any probability of finding out the electron. So it will be considered a zero overlap. And here also, px of one atom cannot overlap with the py of the other. Reason being they are perpendicular to each other. So only the positive overlap can give rise to a bond formation. Now, types of overlap and nature of covalent bond. Something very important. I mentioned in the previous slide something called sigma and pi bond. So let me give you the details of it here. The two types of bonds, covalent bonds, are sigma and pi. These are the symbols and the terms used for them. What is a sigma bond? A sigma bond is always formed by head-on overlap. As we saw in the previous slide, that if a p orbital, positive lobe of p orbital is overlapping with the positive lobe of the other p orbital of an atom, we call it head-on overlap, and that is along the internuclear axis. This is called head-on overlap, or also termed as axial overlap. It's on the axis. This can be formed by any one of the following types. Let us see. If an s orbital of an atom is overlapping with the s orbital of the other atom, and you get this ss overlap. This is head-on overlap. Suppose hydrogen and hydrogen are overlapping. Then you have sp overlap. Suppose carbon p orbital positive lobe is overlapping with the s orbital. We also show it with the positive sign here. So this will be called sp overlap. This is again head-on. If you show it here, sp overlapping, this is head-on. And if two p orbitals, like the positive lobe of one orbital with the positive lobe of the other orbital, so this is again pp overlapping. All these overlapping, these three which we just saw, they are called head-on overlap, and they give rise to sigma bond, which is quite strong. But if you compare it with the next type, which is called pi bonding, in pi bond, the atomic orbitals overlap in such a way that the axes remain parallel. Suppose this is one p orbital, this is the other. These would have been the z orbitals. Why? Because we consider z as the internuclear axis, right? Pz. So this can be px or py. So if I take it as px orbital of one and px of the other, then sideways overlap, positive with positive and negative with negative in the same direction. So this is the overlap. But this overlap, which is generally shown like this is called sideways overlap. This overlap is not as much as can be in case of head-on overlap. So this bond, which is called pi bond, is always weaker than the sigma bond. And there cannot be any pi bond without a sigma bond. First, the sigma bond is formed between two atoms. When they come closer, then they get this pi bond formation by sideways overlap. And this overlap can also be shown like this. This is the internuclear axis, this one, and above and below it the pi electron density is shown like this. Now if somebody is giving you a px orbital and a py orbital, they both are perpendicular to the internuclear axis, which is called pz. Because they are perpendicular to that and perpendicular to each other, so there the sideways overlap or head-on overlap, they are impossible. So no bond formation can take place if you have px and py of different atoms. Strength of sigma and pi bonds, I just gave you the idea. If it is side by side overlap, which is also called sideways overlap or pi overlap, then the strength of the bond is very less, because the strength of the bond depends upon the extent of overlap. More is the extent of overlap, more will be the strength of the bond. So in case of sigma bond, the overlapping of orbitals takes place to a larger extent. Hence it is a stronger bond as compared to the pi bond, where the extent of overlap occurs to a smaller extent, right? So a sigma bond is always stronger than a pi bond, and without a sigma bond, pi bond formation is practically not possible. Another important concept and interesting too, hybridization. In hybridization, hybrid term is related to mixing. So in case of the energy of orbitals, in terms of that, if you say that the characteristic geometrical shapes of some of the polyatomic molecules, like we have already done VSEPR theory, and we know that CH4, NH3, H2O, they all are having tetrahedral geometry, but different shapes. Now, how to explain that bonding which is giving rise to a particular geometry of the molecule? Hybridization plays a very important role here. If I take a simple example, like suppose I write carbon, which is present in every organic compound. So the configuration, electronic configuration, we write as 1s2, 2s2, 2p, 6 is the atomic number. And we show 2 electrons in 2s. I am just showing the valence electrons because the 1s2 electrons do not take part in bonding. Only the outer valence electrons do. So 2 in the 2s I am showing here, and 2 electrons in 2p are here. Now you must have seen that carbon always makes 4 bonds. Now if there is one electron pair which is here in 2s, then how can I expect carbon to make 4 bonds, because these 2 electrons are already paired? So what happens? These orbitals which have less difference, very less difference in their energies, slight difference, they redistribute their energies, they mix together, redistribution of energy takes place, and then this 2s and these 3 2p, they are at same energy level, and this electron can easily unpair and go here. So you get 4 unpaired electrons and it can make 4 bonds. This is the basic thing. One example that how hybrid orbitals are used in making the bond. Now the phenomena is called hybridization, the atomic orbitals, AOs, atomic orbitals, they combine to form new set of equivalent orbitals known as hybrid orbitals. So if one s, as I told you here, if s orbital is combining with three of the p orbital, they can be 2p, 3p, 4p, anything. Suppose 4s is combining with 4p, 3s with 3p, or 2s with 2p, because I cannot expect 2s to combine with 3p or something else of the same atom. Reason, because they have a lot of difference in their energy, and for hybridization the condition is slight difference in energy should be there. So 2s can equally, 2s can easily combine with 2p. So if one s orbital, which is 2s, is combining with 3p orbitals of 2p, 4 orbitals in total, so we will get 4 hybridized orbitals, and they all will be having sp3 as their symbol. If one s is hybridizing with 3 of the p orbitals, sp3, all of them, total 4 orbitals will get, all of them will be called sp3. And you know that s is spherical in shape, and p orbitals, and we show a positive here, and p orbitals have dumbbell shape, positive and negative. So when they hybridize, you get 4 orbitals of exactly same energy, so their shape should also be same. So the shape of all the orbitals and their designation should also be same, which is sp3, right? So shape of all the orbitals, the positive lobe should be slightly bigger and the negative should be slightly smaller, and you show a positive. Why? Because these two positives are combining with each other, overlapping with each other, in phase overlap, and you get 4 sp3 hybridized orbitals of this shape. This is the idea. Again, we can see the definition here. The hybridization can be defined as the process of intermixing of the orbitals of slightly different energies so as to redistribute their energies, resulting in the formation of new set of orbitals of equivalent energies and shape. Here is the same example of carbon, 2s, 2p. You can see this electron is shifted here. So you get, after promotion, 4 unpaired electrons, and they are ready to pair with atoms like hydrogen. So one hydrogen will pair with this. Second hydrogen, there are 4 hydrogens. So we have 4 sp3 hybridized orbitals. They are simply pairing with the electron of one hydrogen each, and we get CH4. So what is the hybridization of CH4? Because we have used 1s and 3p, so it becomes sp3. Every tetrahedral molecule has sp3 hybridization. 4 orbitals are there which combined, so I have to arrange these 4 electron pairs. They may be bond pairs, they may be lone pairs. So that will give rise to sp3 hybridized orbitals. The example of CH4 is given here. Some salient features of hybridization. The main features of hybridization are as under. The number of hybrid orbitals is equal to the number of atomic orbitals that are hybridized. We just saw on the previous slide that 1s was combining with 3p. So total 1s and 3p. I don't mean that 1s from first shell and 3p from the third shell. I'm telling about the number. 1s orbital with 3 of the p orbitals combined. 4 orbitals are combining, so we got 4 sp3 hybridized orbitals. The hybridized orbitals are always equivalent in energy and shape because the redistribution of energy takes place. The hybrid orbitals are more effective in forming stable bonds than the pure atomic orbitals, as you saw the example of CH4. And these hybrid orbitals are directed in space in some preferred directions so that they have minimum repulsion. This we have already discussed in detail in VSE PR theory. So hybridization also supports that. Important conditions for hybridization: the orbitals present in the valence shell of the atom, they should be hybridized. The Orbitals undergoing hybridization should have almost equal energy. Promotion of electron is not essential condition. We'll see one example, one or two examples, then you will understand that in every case electron will not get promoted. And it's not necessary that only half-filled orbitals participate. In some cases, even filled orbitals of valence shell take part. The lone pair will also be taking part in hybridization. Now the types of hybridization. The first type is sp hybridization, where one s orbital and one p orbital, they are hybridizing. So if there is one s and one p, you can easily see that 50% s character, because out of s and p, one is s and one is p. So 50-50% s and p characters we call it. Such a molecule in which the central atom is sp hybridized. Sp means there must be two orbitals. And these two orbitals, if I place them at a maximum distance to minimize the repulsions between them, it becomes a linear shape. So they are to be placed diagonally. So this is also called diagonal hybridization. The two sp hybrid of points in the opposite direction along the z-axis with the projecting positive lobes and very small negative lobes, as I just in the example CH4 carbon, I told you positive lobe maximizes and negative lobe minimizes, which provides more effective overlapping, resulting in the formation of stronger bonds. The example of sp hybridized, for finding out the hybridization, you just see what is the central atom. Like beryllium is the central atom here. So I will write the configuration of beryllium, the outer electrons only, valence electrons, because they take part in bonding, right? So I will take BeCl2. Beryllium has atomic number 4. That would be 2s2. 1s2 you start with. If you want to, you can write the full configuration first. 1s2. Then you have 2s2, and there is 2p, but that is empty. I'm showing because we'll be using it. 2p 0. These are the valence electrons. Now if these valence electrons are to be valence shells, a valence shell is second, and the valence electrons are present in 2s. 2p is empty. So these are the 2 electrons, and 2p, if I show here, it has to be shown like this, empty. Once the hybridization takes place, the promotion takes place, then what will happen? I'll show you with a different color. That electron which is present in 2s, one of the electrons will get unpaired and shipped here, because beryllium makes 2 bonds. So unless these electrons get unpaired, the 1s and 1p orbital which have hybridized, and now they are sharing 1 electron each with Cl on both the sides. So one Cl will come and share the electron here, one Cl, another Cl. So their electrons will come. This is how the sharing is taking place. You can show this on any side. The only thing is they should have opposite spins. So this is 1s and 1p we are using. That's why we are calling it sp. So sp should have a linear shape. Wherever you have sp hybridization, the molecule has to be linear, like this. sp2 hybridized. In sp2 hybridized, for example, BCl3. Boron has atomic number 5. So if you just write the valence electrons, that would be 2s2 and 2p1. 3 valence electrons, 2 are here, and 1 is in 2p, one of the 2p orbitals. So when boron makes bonds, it makes 3 bonds. So this must be getting promoted from here to here. And then each Cl, as shown here in BCl3, they will be sharing their p orbital, positive lobe, with the maximized positive overlap. And notice these minimized negative orbitals, as you can see that here also clearly. This is only for sp2 hybridized orbitals of boron, and then they are overlapping with the p orbitals of chlorine. So in this, we are using 1s and 2p to show the bonding. So this becomes sp2 hybridized. And whenever it is 1s and 2p, total 3, whenever you have to arrange 3 electron pairs around the central atom, it has to be trigonal planar. So whenever it is sp2 hybridized, it has to be trigonal planar. And then again CH4, which we have discussed at length. CH4 has sp3 hybridization. Write the configuration of carbon as I did, and you'll be able to see that it is sp3 hybridized. Okay, let us understand the hybridization, that how can we say that ammonia and water both have sp3 hybridization. Let's try that. And this is in accordance with the fact related to salient features of hybridization, that it's not necessary that every time promotion will take place. So whenever you have to count orbitals which are getting hybridized, you have to see the orbitals having lone pairs and those making the sigma bond only. Pi bond does not contribute to hybridization. And write the configuration of the central atom. I never recommend mugging up any formula for predicting hybridization straight away. You should understand the basic thing first, and then for your MCQs where you have to do it very fast, obviously, you can try that formula which is present available in so many books and modules and everywhere. So here I'm just telling you the basic thing as per NCERT that we must know. If I write the configuration of nitrogen, central atom configuration, we have to write. This is 2s2 and you have 2p3. The valence electrons are in the second shell. We are going to use only valence electrons, which are 2 electrons in S and 3 in P. So if I show orbital like this is for 2s, 2 electrons, anti-parallel spin, and for 2p we have to show the electrons in accordance with Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. So I have to show 1 electron in each one of them. This is 2p3. Now I'll just shift this a bit so that you understand the pairing. Now you can see in ammonia NH3, nitrogen is getting bonded to 3 hydrogens, and we have 3 unpaired electrons in nitrogen. So even if I do not disturb the electron pair in 2s, I can show these red arrows, electron from each hydrogen getting paired. This is the lone pair and these are the 3 bond pairs. And what am I using when I show this bonding? I am using 1s, which is having the lone pair, and 3p. So it becomes sp3. Same way, if you try for water, H2O, write down the configuration of oxygen, 1s2 2s2 2p4, and oxygen is making just 2 bonds and it has 2 unpaired electrons. So here also the promotion of electron is not required. If you just see ammonia, it has pyramidal shape. It has 1 lone pair and 3 bond pairs. And same way we can explain for water also. As I was telling you, just write the valence electrons of oxygen. So that will be 2s2 and 2p4. So in 2s2 you have 2 electrons. In 2p orbitals you have 4 electrons. So 1 electron pair will come here, 2s2, and then apply Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. So you will be showing the electrons of 2p like this. And there is one more which I will show in one of the orbitals as pair, right? So you have these 2 unpaired electrons and these 2 get paired with one hydrogen of one electron of each hydrogen. That you can show here. One and then two anti-parallel spins. So I have used SnP3. These are the two lone pairs. No promotion required here of the electrons, and these are the two bond pairs. So again it is sp3. Whenever you have sp3 hybridization, it has to be tetrahedral geometry, as you can see here on the screen. For NH3 also, for water also, it is tetrahedral geometry. Here this is also water. And shape, when you see, then you have to consider only the bond pairs. So it becomes bent like this, V shape, and this is pyramidal. Other examples of sp3, sp2 and sp hybridizations, whenever you talk about carbon hydrogen compounds, hydrocarbons. So when you show saturated hydrocarbon like methane, it has to be sp3 hybridized. For hydrocarbons, it's very easy. Just see the carbon. If it has all the single bonds, I told you only the sigma bonds are to be counted, so it has to be sp3. If it has a double bond, like in the example which is here on the screen, that is C2H4, ethene. So you just have to count the sigma bonds, and there is no lone pair. Otherwise, I would have counted that also. So this is sigma. Whenever you have a double bond, it has to have one sigma and one pi. So don't count the pi bond, only the sigma. And all these are also sigma with the hydrogen. So you have, and hybridization is to be specified for each atom which is making the carbon chain here. So this carbon has 3 sigma bonds. So sp2. And the other carbon also has 3 sigma bonds. This is also sp2. As shown here, these are the head-on overlaps. 1, 2, 3 for this carbon, and again the central one, 1, 2, 3 for this carbon. They are giving rise to sigma bond. And here you have sideways overlap. So this is pi. Pi density is shown like this also, electron density. Same depiction here. As I told you, the electron clouds for pi electrons can be shown above and below the plane of the molecule, which is shown here. So this is how we explain the sp2 hybridization. Then you have another example, sp hybridization in case of C2H2. So C2H2 has a triple bond. It's an alkyne. So there have to be two carbons in this particular molecule. You have triple bond means one sigma. Always only one sigma would be possible. Head-on overlap is possible only once. Sideways overlap can be for more than one type of orbitals, p orbitals. So these two are pi. So this carbon has one sigma here between the two carbons and one here, as you can see here. This carbon also has one sigma here and one sigma here. So it has to be sp hybridized orbitals of each carbon. And in a particular example, they can give you a long chain of carbons also, like you have CH3. Remember that each carbon is to be explained in terms of hybridization. CH2, then you have CH double bond CH. I'm giving a long one so that it's clear. C triple bond CH. I have taken all type of possible bonds, multiple also, between two carbons. See the carbons one by one. It has all single bonds, sp3. It has all single bonds, sp3, because 4 bonds, 4 sigma bonds. This has a double bond. So 1 sigma here, 1 sigma here, and 1 sigma here. 3 sigma. So it is sp2. The next carbon also is involved in a double bond. It has to be sp2 like the previous one. This carbon is involved in a triple bond. It has to be sp. And this carbon is also involved in a triple bond, so it has to be sp. This is the technique. Now, hybridization of elements involving d orbital. Very interesting. A few examples given in the table. So those which are given in the table, some of them have the square bracket. They are complexes, coordinate compounds. So you can just have an idea that what type of hybridization they have. Details would be done later in class 12. We have a full chapter, coordination compounds. So here I'm explaining simple examples like PCl5. P is in the center, phosphorus. This is the configuration. It has to make 5 bonds, so promotion has to take place from here to here. So this is the excited state of phosphorus, and you can see that each chlorine is coming and sharing 1 electron each with the orbitals, hybridized orbitals. So hybridized orbitals are S3p and 1d, sp3d. Whenever you have 5 single bonds, it has to be sp3d. And whenever I have to arrange 5 electron pairs around the central atom, according to VACPR also we know that it has to be trigonal bipyramidal. So that is the structure, geometry, shape, both are trigonal bipyramidal. Now these three which are in the plane, they are called equatorial bonds, and above and below are axial bonds. So those which are on the axis, they are getting repelled by 3 bonds at 90 degrees. So repulsion is more. That's why axial bonds are always longer than the equatorial bonds. Longer means weaker. Why weaker? Why longer? Because they are facing repulsion from 3 bonds at 90 degree from them. So repulsion is more. But the one which is in equatorial position is getting repelled by 2 which are on the axis at 90 degree and the remaining two at 120 degree. So if you compare, the repulsions are lesser for equatorial. So that is shorter and stronger bond. Whenever you heat PCl5, it dissociates to give you PCl3 and Cl2. The axial bonds break because they are longer and weaker. The equatorial bonds are stronger, so they do not break that easily. That's the reason. Another important one, SF6, sulfur is in the middle, in the center of the molecule. So the configuration of sulfur. Now 6 bonds are to be made, so we need these two to get promoted here. This is the excited state, and then 6 chlorines are coming and sharing 1 electron each. We have used 1 of the s orbitals, 3 of the p orbitals, and 2 of d. So the hybridization becomes s p 3 d 2. Again you have 1s, 3p and 2d, 6 orbitals. So whenever you have to arrange 6 around the central atom, 6 electron pair, it has to be octahedral. Now these are a few questions from the exercise which I thought I must discuss. The first one, what is meant by hybridization of atomic orbitals? We just discussed in the presentation that intermixing of the orbitals which have slight difference in their energy, that is called hybridization. And that the shape of sp orbital, only 2 orbitals are there, linear, sp2 trigonal planar, and sp3 tetrahedron. Then you can specify any example for each category and draw the structure. Now describe the change 4.25 in the hybridization, if any, of Al atom in the following. Al is here and Al is here. Now what is happening in AlCl3? If you write the configuration of Al, which has atomic number 13, the outermost electrons would be the 3 valence electrons, like in case of boron. There it was 2s, here it is 3s. So you have 3s2 and 3p1. Then you will show the excitation of electron, excited state. I am showing straight away that 1 electron will remain in 3s, and after getting promoted, one of the electrons from 3s goes to 3p. One is already there, now one more. This is the excited state of Al. So when we show AlCl3, you can see that there are 3 unpaired electrons and each chlorine can come and make a bond. So we will be using 1s and 2p. When they hybridize, it becomes sp2. So for AlCl3, the hybridization is sp2. Now, how does AlCl3 convert to AlCl4 minus when AlCl3 reacts with Cl minus? Now, Cl minus has 8 valence electrons. Chlorine, which had 7 valence electrons, has taken 1 electron from somewhere and converted to chloride ion. Now, when chloride ion is coming close to AlCl3, because you know that in AlCl3, the octet of Al is incomplete. It is making 3 bonds, trigonal, planar, but octet is incomplete. So Cl minus will come with its electron pair to be shared and it will offer it. Coordinate bond will be formed. So that means the chlorines which were already bonded, they are having 1 electron each paired, and the Cl minus will come with the complete electron pair. This is a coordinate bond. Now in doing all this, I have used 1s and 3p. So the hybridization for the hybridization for AlCl4 minus now becomes sp3. So definitely there is change in hybridization. It has changed from sp2 to sp3. Let us see the next. BF3 reacting with ammonia and making BF3 dot. Whenever you have this kind of representation, that means a coordinate bond. And we very well know that boron has incomplete octet BF3 में, and ammonia, nitrogen in ammonia has a lone pair. So when you mix them together, nitrogen which is having a lone pair can easily offer it for sharing, coordinate bond. Nitrogen is not donating its lone pair, it is offering it for sharing. So hybridization of ammonia before the reaction and after the reaction remains same. That is sp3. But for BF3, like in the question 4.25, for AlCl3, the way it changed. For BF3, exactly like Al, you will write the configuration. You will find it is sp2 hybridized. And after it gets a particular pair of electron from nitrogen for sharing, it changes to sp3, exactly like I have explained for AlCl3. There is no change for ammonia in the hybridization, but the hybridization of BF3 has changed from sp2 to sp3. Draw diagrams 4.27. Draw diagrams showing the formation of a double bond and a triple bond. So you can take up the example of these two molecules, C2H4, C2H2, as I explained in the presentation, that in C2H4 you will show a double bond, sideways overlap once, and in C2H2 it has to be a triple bond. So sigma bonds between carbons and hydrogens, and then 2 pi bonds. Then what is the total number of sigma and pi bonds in the following molecule? If I simply draw the structure of C2H2, we know that it's alkyne. There has to be a triple bond. This. Now let us see how many sigma and how many pi. Triple bond, 1 sigma, 2 pi. And this is also head-on overlap, another sigma, another sigma. So I can clearly see that in C2H2 you have 3 sigma and 2 pi. Same way you can do for C2H4. Now consider x-axis as the internuclear axis. That x-axis is the internuclear axis through which the whole molecule, around which the whole molecule is centered, arranged. Now, we have to tell that in which of the following sigma bond will not be formed, and we have to give the reason also. So if it is 1s and 1s, then there is no problem because s orbitals are spherical in shape, so they can easily overlap. So this can give rise to sigma bond. And when I was explaining the overlap of orbitals in the same presentation, I had explained that how 1s or any s orbital can overlap with the positive lobe of any of the p orbitals. This can also give rise to head-on overlap. Sigma is possible here. Sigma is possible here. When 2py is overlapping with the 2py, now this is perpendicular to x-axis. If we consider x as the internuclear axis, py has to be perpendicular to it. So this cannot form sigma bond. It has to be sideways overlap. So this will be a pi bond. And then 1s and 2s, obviously they can easily overlap spherical orbitals. So they can give rise to sigma. So in this only the C part where 2py and 2py are explained, that they will not be making the sigma bond. Now the last question. 4.30 for this presentation. Which hybrid orbitals are used by carbon atoms? I gave you a particular hydrocarbon example. So on the same lines, you can try. This carbon has all single bonds, sp3. This has also single bonds, sp3. This carbon, sp3. This carbon I can see involved in a double bond, so sp2. This is also sp2. Here you have carbon with all single bonds, carbon with all single bonds. So both are having sp3 hybridization. Now this and this, let us draw them. You just have to keep in mind, you will understand these better when you do organic chemistry. But right now also, if you keep it in mind that hydrogen can never make more than one bond and carbon always makes total 4 bonds, you can easily draw the structure. So the structure here is CH3 for D part. I'm doing it. Last question. And you have carbon attached to hydrogen and there is one oxygen. Now oxygen makes a double bond with carbon here. Now you can see that this carbon is involved in all single bonds, sp3. This is involved in a double bond, so sp2. Same way for this, you can draw CH3. Here you cannot show oxygen here with a single bond with hydrogen and carbon because that will not be a stable structure. Reason being carbon will have only 3 bonds there, but each carbon should have 4 bonds. And even if you show a double bond here, then oxygen will be having 3 bonds, one with hydrogen and 2 here. That is also not possible. So the structure is as we have drawn it. This is the structure. I'll just draw the hydrogen again. Avoid any confusions. Right. So we were drawing CH3COH. So this is CH3COOH. In this also, carbon has a double bond with one oxygen and single bond with the other one and then H. This way, 2 bonds of oxygen, 1 bond of each hydrogen and 4 bonds of each carbon are justified. So this has all single bonds, sp3 hybridized. This has a double bond, sp2 hybridized. This is how you explain hybridization. So we have come to the end of this presentation. I hope it helps you. And in the next presentation, which will be the last for this chapter, we'll be discussing molecular orbital theory and hydrogen bonding in detail. We will be actually drawing all the MO diagrams which are in your syllabus in class 11th. Thank you.